We really thought that we would have children right away once we got married, but as the years went on, that was just not happening, and it was devastating.
It was challenging, but over time, we finally were able to conceive, and we were thrilled.
When I saw that little line, there are no words to describe it. Fast forward to my 22-week ultrasound. So I'm lying on the table, and the tech is, moving the little ultrasound wand around with a gel on my stomach, and she very politely says to me, I need to excuse myself and go get a doctor. And a doctor in the practice that day, she said to me, your baby must not have any kidneys, your baby must not have a bladder, half your amniotic fluid is gone. There must be something chromosomally wrong with your baby. You need to have an abortion. You could die, and your baby most certainly will die.
That was jarring. That was a life-changing moment. Of course, we loved our child, and we wanted to know what hopeful steps we were going to be given next, or some direction.
That doctor sent us up to another doctor, and this actually was even more disturbing because this doctor that my husband and I sat across from, he was very calm and collected. He said, you clearly need to have an abortion. You'll have many other children. And I so vividly remember saying, I don't care if we have 100 other children. This life matters, and we want this life. And he said, but you don't understand. Your child probably won't even live. Your child clearly has a chromosomal abnormality that is not compatible with life. There's no way that this child would live. And if for some reason this child did live, this child would have no quality of life. And finally, as we were getting toward the end of the conversation, my husband said, clearly, we are not going to abort. So what will you do for us? What can we expect? And he said the most chilling words. He said, in my 7 years of practice, nobody in your position has ever not aborted.
We asked him if there were other tests he could do. He said, the only other test I could offer you is an autopsy report.
And he went on to say, go home and wait for your baby to die. And when you come back in for one of your visits, there will no longer be a heartbeat, and you will give birth to a stillborn child. At which point, my wonderful husband and I went home, devastated, honestly, wanting to shut ourselves away from the world and just devastated. And my amazing mom, she said, Suzanne, is there still a heartbeat? And I said, well, yes. She said, Suzanne, if there's a heartbeat, there is hope.
We reached out to a doctor at our church.
And he said, we'll honor your request to fight for your baby's life. And immediately they put me on bed rest.
And we were rushed into the operating room, and it was an emergency C-section.
And they said, because there's no amniotic fluid, if by chance she is alive, she will be too weak to cry. And there was a drape. My husband could see on the other side, I couldn't.
And then I remember seeing Rachel come up over the top of that sheet, and she was very tiny.
I all of a sudden heard him say, she's squawking. And the doctors were joking because they said, she's so feisty and willful. She kept sticking her hands up trying to grab the doctor's stethoscope. And they thought she would be too weak to cry. They thought she would be too weak to move.
It was something I'll never forget. And you can't really put words to it either.
All I kept thinking was, she's alive. She's alive.
You know, God says, I knit you together in your mother's womb. So God knew her before we did and had value in her. And if we didn't know God or that verse, I can't imagine how that would have changed our perspectives.
My name is Rachel Mary, and if my parents wouldn't have fought for me, I would have missed out on a life that is such a joy. Well, I've always known the story, bits and pieces, of course, depending on the age that I was that was appropriate to share. But the day that I found out that 3 doctors wanted me dead was heart-wrenching. To think that people wouldn't value my life, wouldn't value the lives of hundreds of children just because of our location, your heart must be very hardened and broken. And I distinctly remember going online and Googling the physicians who didn't fight for me and who did. And I sobbed. I sobbed and I said to God, I said that I will do everything in my power to make sure that people know that abortion is not the answer. And God, He burdened my heart to write to the physicians who told my parents to abort me. And it was a 6-month process. And through it all, my heart was that these physicians would know that Jesus loves them. I wanted them to know that He's given them such a huge power, and to ask them that they would be willing to use that power to fight for life and not to harm life. And so I sent it off unexpectedly. Go to the mailbox one day, 2 weeks later, I see a handwritten note by one of the physicians. And this physician said to me, that they're thankful that I lived, that they didn't think I would survive. And she said, God bless you. Then, it was probably not even a week later, I get another handwritten note, and they say, I didn't think you would live at all. I didn't. And I'm thankful that you're here, and I would like to meet you one day. When you're looking at their faces, and then you're reading what they've said, and you're hearing from your parents what they said, and all of this just comes together, and you're overwhelmed. You're overwhelmed that the medical field would sometimes choose to use their power to harm instead of to fight. It crushed me, and it gave me even more passion to say, God, will you please allow me to be able to tell people how much hope there is in choosing life. I would have missed out on 2 amazing parents, on getting to hear people's stories, getting to meet the most awesome people in Uganda, getting to squeeze and give hugs to so many Ugandan little children, and I would have missed out on a life that is such a joy.